And that time you're saying, I'm free from my parents, I can do what I want. Unfortunately, many of us remain there for the rest of their lives. It's not easy for you to go to Syria and everybody, 80 salespeople and others, are all Syrians, and you're the only black guy in the room. You can decide to melt, or you can decide to say, there's a reason God brought me here. Slowly, and he was just trying to touch, to touch.
To see whether it's real.
Feel. Then me, since I'm seeing it with the corner of my eye, I move the hand closer. Say, touch as much as you want. We're looking at the PowerPoint.
It doesn't hurt.
We are looking at the PowerPoint.
What?
Touch as much as you want. I said, sir, I live in Kamerezo. Then the guy sits up and says, Linus, Kame, what?
He had never heard of that.
He said, no, as a bank executive, I mean, you're going to be a marketing manager. You cannot live in that Kame place.
You can't believe it. This one is the boy from the village. People have been asking me, where is the boy? You are the girl. So the boy from the village is here, and this is the executive table.
It is the guys who are kind of smart who are getting into accounting. So I wasn't going to be caught on the offside. So first of all, that's one of the reasons.
You did not want to be with everybody else.
Yes,
that's what I'm getting.
Because I was very passionate and I actually was excelling, they did not see any reason why they would not put me among the rest.
Hello and welcome to the executive table. As promised, we'll keep on giving you, bringing some very exciting guests. And today, I'm very, very excited. Not just because we have a very esteemed guest, but this one is the boy from the village. People have been asking me, where is the boy? You are the girl. So the boy from the village is here. So feel welcome. And I want to welcome Mr. Linus Gitahi to the discussion. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Girl from my village.
So now, can you start by just letting the viewers know who you are, the roles you've held, what you're doing now, and all that? We want to know you.
All right. You will know me. My name is Linus Gitahi. I am a boy from Mary's village, although I'm a much older man than Mary. I schooled in the village. And I think the first time I went to town is because I had passed my CPE. That time we used to call it CPE. And I went to Thika High School. Then I proceeded to the University of Nairobi, where I did BCom accounting. And then I went to PwC. I lasted for exactly 8 months. And I realized that accounting was not my thing, although I had done CPA 2 and all that. So I pivoted, did my MBA, even in school, and I moved into marketing. I moved into a company called Ogilvy & Mather, and I was there for 1.5 years, and then I was poached by my client, GSK. That time it was Starling Winthrop. I went on to work for GSK for 19 years, and in those 19 years I held various positions. I joined them as a brand manager, trainee. I became a full brand manager, I became a marketing manager, then I became a marketing director for East Africa. Then I became marketing director for Africa, based out of London. So I was in Brentford, in London, head office for 3 years, 2 years actually, because after that I became commercial director for a region we used to call Near East. Near East is Cyprus, where I was based. Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. So actually, when I'm seeing the stuff that is happening in Syria, it gives me some nostalgia because I used to drive alone from Beirut to Damascus when I was working there, and it's 1.5 hours from. So I worked in that region. Then I came back home and became general manager for GlaxoSmithKline here. Did 3 years. And my final posting was CEO for GSK for West Africa. GSK West Africa was a pretty big organization, and it was a public company quoted in the stock exchange. So after 3 years, I wanted to come back home. And now I couldn't come back to GSK because there were like 2 job grades above. The CEO for West Africa was way senior than the CEO for West Africa. So I came back, and that time I wanted to do my own business. I was already negotiating to buy a company called Tropikal Brands. At that time it was called Oasis. Then when I did the deal, I found myself with a lot of, huge loan. And I decided that I could also work. At that time, people called Nation Media Group knocked on my door and told me they had a CEO position, which I gladly took. I thought I would do it for 2 or 3 years. But I ended up doing it for 10 years. And then at 10 years, I think I was about 52. I had wanted to kind of stop at 50. Although then they were looking for a CEO, and it took a little longer than I thought. So I left at about 51, 52, and went into business, which I'm doing to this day. Sasa,
Okay.
umenijua?
Yeah, nimekujua kidogo, but I have a question.
Yeah.
You are talking very casually about going to PwC
Yeah.
for 8 months only. That's
Yes.
what you said.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're going to university, doing your first degree, undergraduate, I'm sure you thought finance was the best thing that had ever been discovered. So let me ask you, so what made you feel that finance or audit or the advisory they do at PwC and those kind of firms was not the thing for you? So that's the first question. And then the other question is, how did that transition look like? What did you have to do as a professional to move from finance to the new area, and that was now the marketing? From what I got, you went to marketing after that. Just tell us, because many people have been asking me, how do you transition from one career to the other as a professional?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, but Mary, you realize when you're dealing with pensioners, you ask one question at a time.
Okay.
Because by the time
I'll remind you.
By the time I finish the first question, I'll be asking,
You'll have forgotten the others.
ulikuwa unauliza nini here?
Don't worry, you're not alone.
So that what you've asked me is a very good question, and I really liked talking about
talk about
it.
first why you
that
felt
one,
you needed to move. Yeah.
I like talking about that even when I'm talking to young people. First of all, why finance and accounting? First of all, I did that because, and I think it's very important, especially for young people, I did accounting because during my BCom time, we only had 3 options. You either, after first year, you either specialized in accounting or insurance or in marketing. Now, accounting was the only one where you are required to achieve a certain grade. The rest were divided. While I was back, they were divided between insurance and marketing. So right there, from the positioning of the courses, it is the guys who are kind of smart who are getting into accounting. So I wasn't going to be caught on the offside. So first of all, that's one of the reasons.
You did not want to be with everybody else.
Yes,
That's what I'm getting.
So I actually went and did accounting, and actually was the chairman of Accounting Students Association. And we did quite some good work there. So that is the reason. My own professor, Professor Kimura, who is still a good friend of mine to this day, actually suggested that I do marketing. I told him, sasa mimi, I want to qualify for this one. And I did. But after 8 months of practicing in, that time it was Coopers and Library, which is PwC today. After 8 months of practicing, and actually passing CPA 2, I went back to him. I said, nimefanya mtihani ya kwanza, nimepita, but I'm not feeling this thing. Then Prof was like, I told you, but there's another job here. Fortunately, jobs are not a problem during that time.
Yeah.
So there is a job here for Ogilvy and Mather. Ogilvy and Mather was an organization like the one we're having here. And you can take it. The only problem is that you said you're earning how much? I was earning 7K. But Ogilvy and Mather was only willing to pay 5K. So now,
5,000.
Yeah, now I had to make a decision because the difference was my rent. I was staying in Moshada. So that rent, I thought about it and how I settled in my mind is because I had like a nice 2-bedroom house in Mochada. I decided to take the 5K, but in order to mitigate the lost cash,
manage your expenses.
I got a housemate.
Oh,
so
I
my
see.
rent became half.
Smart guy.
And now I took the job that I wanted. And guess what? I thrived. In fact, after a year, they moved my salary to 9,000. So I felt now I was already doing better than the guys I left in PwC. One of them is here actually. He's here. He ended up being a CEO of KPMG. Richard Dongo is here. So so that's why I did. That's how I moved from accounting to marketing. And I hadn't done any marketing, by the way. I hadn't done a single thing in marketing.
So what you're saying is that to move from Coopers and Librad to Ogilvy, you needed to take a cut of 2,000.
Yeah, which was
And that
huge.
was a very difficult decision.
Yes.
Because it was also tied to your expenses, your liabilities, and all that. Yeah. So just talk a little bit more about the trade-offs that we have to make sometimes to make a transition.
Yeah, I think that is, in fact, when I look back at it, I can't believe it, because 2,000 out of 7,000 is significant. But you know, when you walk into an office in the morning and you really do not like, why didn't I like accounting, auditing rather, is because I would wake up in the morning, then you're told you're going to audit BAT or Unilever, you go and get a little room there, you are given all these files, you spend the day there looking at those files and maybe asking questions. I was feeling miserable because I am a guy who likes this kind of thing. You know, even in the office, you're likely to find me talking to people there, then chatting in the next office. So I realized I wasn't cut for that. And there are many people cut for that. And doesn't mean auditing is bad. Auditing is a great profession. Actually, it is extremely profitable profession, but it wasn't for me. So when I realized that, I was going to sacrifice. I was happy to sacrifice. Like I said, all I needed to think about is how I mitigate the fact that this cash was already going to rent and other things. So I got a roommate, another guy we were in college with, and he comes and shares half of the rent and half of the other expenses. So in effect, I mitigated the cost, but I went to do a job I was looking forward to doing in the morning. And by coincidence, Ogilvy and Mather at that time was the biggest advertising company. By coincidence, I found myself going to the same clients. I would go to the same BAT. We created lots of communication for Sportsman those days. One of them, Sportsman Sawa Hasa. You would remember, these ones will not remember.
I remember that.
So we did that. I went back to the same Unilever. But now, I was going to the boardrooms. Never mind, I was an assistant. But I was going to the boardrooms and talking to other marketing people. So I thrived.
Yeah, so you
when
took
I understood
a cut,
myself, yeah.
But then you recovered it after how long? You said you got a salary rise
the
to
next salary
9,000?
Yeah, the next salary review, I was...
After 1 year?
Yeah, they put me at 9,000. Because now they put me, remember, they were putting, you know, that was their starting salary. But now, the next lot were at 9,000. Because I was very passionate and actually was excelling, they did not see any reason why they would not put me among the rest who were had come a year before and were 9,000.
Wow, wonderful.
So, yeah.
So guys, career transitions may require you to do a trade-off, but you get to a place where you thrive and you're able to execute your passion. And like Linus has said, you will recover that in another few years. So don't worry about making the trade-offs. But that's a very good one. Now, let's go to how you found it at Ogilvy. Looks like you're on a roll at Ogilvy and in that space. You moved from one position to another very quickly. Tell us about that.
My experience now is that if you wake up in the morning to do your passion and do it well, money will follow. This is important. This company comes and knocks on my door. and offers me, now my salary is about 25 or 30K, offers me 70K. I'm checking, it's like, where do I sign? There is 70K, there is
You're willing to give your soul.
4 or 5 SR.
This is Mary Wamae, and this is the executive table. We are continuing with the conversation. In case you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch on our socials. We are going to answer all of them. Now, let's go to how you found it at Ogilvy. Looks like you're on a roll at Ogilvy, and in that space, you moved from one position to another very quickly. Tell us about that.
Like I said, it's because I was enjoying what I was doing. I had very good clients. One of my mentors that time is a lady called Catherine Mwangi. I was reporting to Catherine Mwangi. She's my very good friend to this day. Now she's Ambassador Catherine Mwangi, who's just retired. She guided me. We started by both going to clients, then she quickly thought I could handle on my own some of the smaller clients, like KCC. I started handling them. And the biggest thing is that I was passionate about it. So passionate that even though I was a BCom, I actually registered for a marketing course, diploma in management, because it had a big marketing component, at Kenya Institute of Management. So I'll go there in the evening for a year. And people asking me, why are you here and you're a BCom? I said, no, I want to run this thing called marketing, because I never did it in college. Because college I did accounting. So it was passion and actually finding myself doing the thing that I thought I was made to do, as opposed to the other one where I was chasing money. Because I had been told auditors make a lot of money.
They make a lot.
So I realized chasing money.
Yeah.
And actually that's a good analogy, because you can wake up in the morning to chase money, or you can wake up in the morning to do your passion. My experience now is that if you wake up in the morning to do your passion and do it well, money will follow.
Yeah, yeah.
It follows.
The passion, money follows passion.
Money follows passion.
It can never be the other way around.
It can never be.
Where passion follows money.
Yeah,
it will not work out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very exciting. So how did you then rise to the level of the, I think you worked in the UK and then West Africa. Just tell us a little bit about that and what you had to do to take those bold steps upwards.
Yeah, like I say, now I'm in marketing in Ogilvy and Mather. One of my clients was Sterling Winthrop. Sterling Winthrop is today's GSK, because they went through a lot of metamorphosis, mergers and acquisitions. So we are talking about Panadol and headaches advertising. And the marketing manager then, again, a gentleman called Robin Jenga. Robin Jenga is retired. He lives in Tigoni. I was with him last week, because that's the other thing. All the people who held my hand along the way are my very good friends. In fact, he sponsored a tournament 2 weeks ago in Limuru Golf Club and asked me to go and represent him in a speech. But the point is, Robin Jega identified me and said, this young man, would you be happy to come on this side? And I said, yeah. So the guy offered me some good money. By good money, I think he moved my Casalo to 15K from 9.
I thought you were not following money.
I wasn't following money. But he offered me a good job with more benefits.
Yes.
And
still your passion.
Yeah, in marketing.
Yes.
And I joined them. Now, when I joined, shortly after, I did 2 years. I think after about 6 months, Robin Jenga retired. When he retired, we brought a new marketing manager from Sri Lanka. I think he retired after 1.5 years. I'm mixing up the dates. So we got another marketing manager from Sri Lanka. He was called Ravi Fernando. So right Fernando, we work with him, and kind of we were not getting on well. And at that point, I also wanted to change. Because I was feeling now, yes, this is my passion. This guy is a micromanager. He's not giving us, he's not giving us opportunity to sort of discover ourselves.
Yeah, he's not empowering you.
And by the way, the CEO was also Sri Lankan that time. He was called Wira Sekera. So I decided I wanted to venture out. Now I'm 3.5 years in Sterling Winthrop. So, just when I'm fidgeting about what to do, another company comes and knocks on my door. This is important. This company comes and knocks on my door and offers me, now my salary is about 25 or 30K, offers me 70K.
What?
Now, when they offer me 70K, I still have the letter of appointment, by the way. Maybe I should have bought it. It's a souvenir. But listen to this story. So, the CEO or the chairman of that company was living in Yaya Center, Yaya Tower. I think Yaya Center, I think 14th floor somewhere. Yeah. And when I went for interview, the final interview, because you get interviewed by people, and then you go for the final interview. The final interview, I go there and meet his PA. And then his PA says, "Oh, you are Linus?" "Yeah, okay. I was told to give you these keys." "For what?" "He wants you to drive this car around Yaya Center. Then you tell us whether it is the kind of car you'd want." Can you imagine? At that time, it was a 405 SR, red in color.
What?
I go and drive that car around, and by the time I'm going to 14th floor, or whatever floor it was, I'm checking, it's like, where do I sign? There is 70K, there is...
You're willing to give your soul.
45 SR. But here's the thing. So I go, I actually accept. I go with the letter. Said I was going to return a copy. Then I go back to GSK, Sterling. And I go and tell the person I really respected. My immediate boss, we had a bit of a problem. I told him I'm going. He told me, "Sawa, sawa." But I decided to go and tell the MD, I'm going. Then the MD said, "Why are you leaving?" Wira Sekera was an elderly man. "Why are you leaving?" I said, "Okay, you know, well, I don't get along with my boss and da. He told me, he asked me, "Is that the only reason you're leaving?" You remember there was like a 70K here.
It's another reason.
Like a 4-5. But here is the thing. He told me, if that is the only, I told him, "Yeah, that's the only reason I'm leaving." He told me, if that is the reason you're leaving, Lavi, Fernando, has just been promoted. He's going to be in charge of Middle East and he's moving to Dubai. That's the good news. The bad news is that we've already recruited a marketing director. It's called Bete Buyu. She was to replace him. So if that was the reason you're leaving Linus, then you don't leave. I thought hard. As I really respected Wira Sekera, not just because of that, but he was a very good muzee. He used to guide. We used to look at him as a whatever, reserve of knowledge and all that. Do you know, I actually found myself looking at him and telling him, "Thank you, sir, I will not leave."
Wow.
So I did not leave.
You forgot about the red car.
And the 70K, and I did not get a single shilling increment. But I found myself telling him, no, yeah, I think, because I really thought he had my interest at heart. I really thought he meant what he was saying. I really took his word when he said, "You have a bright future here. And if you do what I see you doing, you're going to do way, way better." I told him about my salary. I said, "We are not going to negotiate salary because we have our structures. But if you continue doing what you're doing, I can see you have a bright future." Now...
So I think what you're telling the leaders is that sometimes employees do not stay because of how much you pay them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It is actually because of the environment that you create for them.
Absolutely.
To love their work and really want to be part of the business.
what I call interdependent-minded. After a year and a half since the day I refused this offer.
Linus.
And now the casalo was like 250K.
What?
If you're passionate about what you do, it will ooze out of your face. It will ooze out of the things you do.
It will show.
That's the first thing.
Welcome back. If you are joining us now, the conversation has been ongoing. Please go back and check it out. This is the executive table. My name is Mary Wamae, executive coach and author. Please continue with us. So I think what you are telling the leaders is that sometimes employees do not stay because of how much you pay them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It is actually because of the environment that you create for them.
Absolutely.
To love their work and really want to be part of the business.
In fact, I wanted to say that I wanted to also say the company that I was joining. The company I was joining, because Wida Sekera helped me not to join, was a company called Trade Bank. Trade Bank collapsed exactly 3 months later.
Wow.
Exactly 3 months later.
What?
And I had friends there, as you know.
I know. Yeah.
It collapsed 3 months later. And Wida Sekera comes with a sort of cheapish smile towards my office and said, Linus, how are you? I said, I'm good. Have you read the papers? Yes, I have, sir.
Oh, eventually you owned up to him. You had an offer from them.
No, even when we were talking, I told him.
Finally,
I told him this. I'm leaving.
I have an offer, and
when
this
I'm
is how much
leaving,
I'm getting.
Yeah. So I had told him on day one.
Amazing.
So he said, how are you? Uko salama?
Look at the newspaper.
Niko salama. Thank you very much, Wida Sekera. But you know what? Bete Buyu comes, and after 1 year, I worked for her. We worked extremely well. But after 1 year debate, she got a job in BAT as marketing director. And guess who became marketing director? After a year and a half since the day I refused this offer.
Linus.
And now the casalo was like 250K.
What?
So
you're on a roll, my man.
Yeah, it was like 250K.
Amazing.
So it pays. It pays to also.
Paid.
Yeah. Not to say I was not tempted by this, but that's one of the most important decisions I took. To refuse this thing with this red car.
Yes.
It was not easy.
Yeah, I know.
It was not easy.
It was a tough decision.
It was a very
tough decision. So that was actually
decision.
your second very tough decision. To take or not to take.
Yeah. In fact, I can tell you that time I had moved to a place called, I had now graduated from Muchadha. You know Muchadha in Banana Hill?
Yes.
So I had graduated and I had moved to a place called Kameritho. That is where I bought my first house. Because me, I never liked the estates.
Yes.
So I had bought my first house. So I remember when I was being interviewed by the chairman of Trade Bank, this time we are talking about the cars and the salary, I'll never forget, because he asked me, Linus, where do you live? I said, sir, I live in Kameritho. Then the guy sits up and says, Linus, Kame, what?
He had never heard of that place.
He said, no, as a bank executive, I mean, you're going to be a marketing manager. You cannot live in that Kame place.
Believe it.
You cannot live in that Kame place. We'll give you a loan. And Kilimani, Lavington, that's the kind of place because I expect you to be entertaining. Will you now be taking our clients to that Kame place? So
he couldn't even say the name in full. That reminds me when I joined the bank and I was driving a Starlet. And when people land in the bank that I drive, a green, nice, beautiful Starlet, KAM 149C. And one of the guys could not take it. He told my boss, can you imagine our new company secretary drives a toy? No, a toy for a car. And I was like, okay, this is not good for the brand, is it? Yeah. I had to upgrade. But that's great.
Yeah. So, so that's how, so I became marketing director. we did a lot of good stuff. I'm very proud of my time as marketing director because we moved our brand significantly. Yeah. Like Panadol was #1, Headaches was #2, Cafenol was #3. So we owned the space. Yeah. And we did a lot of good work across Uganda and Tanzania. We even started something we used to call Headache Super Cup. Again, this lot will not remember. Where we used to have the winners of the league, the Moi Golden Cup that time.
Wow, just also to connect with the customers. And
then we merged with SmithKline Beecham, and we become SmithKline Beecham actually, because SmithKline Bar is turning Withrow. After years, I was made now the marketing director of both companies. So those ones brought in like Beaners, Lucozade, Aquafresh into the party. I was made marketing director. I was marketing director, but now I became they said the best person for the job. I was lucky to get
for the bigger entity.
Of the bigger entity. I worked there for a year, and then I think we were doing extremely well. So my boss said, I need you in London. I need you to look after Africa. So I moved to Brentford with my family in London, and I now was looking after East Africa, West Africa. South Africa was different, and I did that job for a while.
I just want to take the lesson which I've got from you so far. The client you are serving when you are in Ogilvy sees you are working for him as a client, and then they say, we want this guy
on our side,
in our team. I want you to just elaborate a little bit, because I get the feeling sometimes we think that moving from one position to the higher position is a given, or people just get it, maybe because they know people. There's that common belief in the circles where we are talking and discussing these things. Maybe you should talk about what you need to do to create that profile that somebody will see you and say, this guy is good for our team. I want to work with this guy. Yeah.
Me, I think I would say a couple of things. First of all, I think I did talk about passion. If you're passionate about what you do, it will ooze out of your face. It will ooze out of the things you do.
It will show.
That's the first thing. The second one, which is kind of unrelated, but I always find it important to talk about it, is discipline. Yeah. You know, whatever you do, you know, discipline is not a project. It's not an event. Discipline is a way of life. If you want to be admired by people in terms of work, half of it is maybe your passion, like I'm saying, but the rest of it is to see discipline, to see someone who is committed, to see somebody who delivers what he promises, to see somebody who even keeps time. Sorry, I was late this morning. But you know, that is very important. I think there is so having passion about what you do, having discipline about what you do, and then the other thing, which I think I found important in my journey, and again I find that is being what I call interdependent minded. And what do I mean by interdependent minded? You know, when you're a small baby, when you're an infant, you are totally dependent. You're totally dependent on your mother or your general environment. Will not let you even move alone even for a minute. And then you grow, and especially when you're going to high school, you are now feeling totally dependent. You're going to high school, maybe a boarding school, and that time you're saying, I'm free from my parents, I can do what I want. Unfortunately, many of us remain there for the rest of their lives. I am independent, I can do what I want. Those people end up leading a very sad life. That life of I'm independent, I can do what I want. The people who succeed are the people who now move to another level. And that is the level of interdependence. And what is interdependence? It is knowing that in an organization like this, if I want to be the guy to do the camera, I can't, because it will come out pretty bad. If I wanted to be the guy who is doing auditing, I can't.
I'm not.
I tried it and I failed.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So you realize that in life, you are interdependent. You have to respect that guy who does auditing because he's the best to advise you on auditing. You have to respect the guy who does marketing. And you have to realize, and I realized that more than anywhere else when I was in Nation Media Group. Maybe you'll talk about that. Because, in fact, I used to tell Nation Media, and if you know the fellows, some of them are here, you can ask them. I used to tell the editors, guys, never ever go on strike. Because if you do, you leave me to do the newspaper.
Yeah.
Now, if you leave me to do the newspaper, I'll try page 1, but by the time I am in page 3, all of it will be in Kikuyu. Why? Because I'm not an editor.
And it will take 3 days to maybe get one.
So by the time you have finished your strike,
Yeah.
you'll find that the brand you left is totally
totally
mutilated.
messed up. Yeah.
But you realize that you have to respect that editor because that is what he's way better than you. The other fight, and then you realize all of us bring something to the party. We are interdependent of each other. That is how you roll in the world.
Yeah.
But because of this thing of hierarchy and boss and everything, we tend to, particularly the higher you go, the more independent you think you are. That thing you did when you were a teenager, when you left your mother and became independent is what kills us.
So
Can we stop at that point?
Yeah, you need to lose the independence.
You need to lose the
Okay,
independence.
I think we will cut it there.
And then you become independent. When you are deep in Lebanon or Syria, when did they ever relate with blacks? I am fearfully and wonderfully made, so says the Bible. And if I have that content, if I'm able to do that, it is about me to them, not the other way around. I wouldn't say I worked extra. I mean, I had to prove anything. I flipped the thing. They had to prove. And to be fair, I think we fired a few. They had to prove to me that they are worth working for me.
Welcome back. The conversation continues. We have Mr. Linus Gitahi with us today. Now,
Yes.
GSK, you worked in very many places. You started in Nairobi, then you went to London, then you did Cyprus for a bit, you even did Pakistan for a while, then back to Nairobi, and then Lagos, and then back to Nairobi. Now, that means that you had to navigate leading in a cross-cultural environment. And I want you to talk a little bit about how you navigated that, working in those across different cultures, different peoples, different environments, and all that, because there are leaders who get challenged with that.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question. And now it's when I'm reflecting and seeing that I actually did work in very different cultures. Maybe I also illustrate this with some stories because when you're working in those environments, you definitely get stories. I'm glad that my first assignment outside Nairobi was in London, because London you get all sorts of people. I'm also glad that it was in a multinational. GSK at that time was the second biggest pharmaceutical company in the world. So you can imagine there were already a multicultural environment. And therefore, when you go to London, you've not been there at all. In fact, the first thing that happened in London is I arrive on a Sunday, I'm given a car on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm driving to work. On Wednesday, I get a ticket for speeding. And speeding here, I mean about 50 kilometers per hour, because it was sort of in an estate. And at the end of the month, I see the salary I was promised is raised by 200 pounds. I go rushing to the HR office and say, this is not what we agreed. Then she quickly goes to the drawer and says, this is a ticket that came because the car belonged to the company.
Oh, to the company.
And they straight away deducted. I can tell you for the next 3 years, I was never caught driving because I knew the consequences of, because the camera takes it and goes straight into the
system.
Owner of the car and finds them. So that's a bit of an aside, but you can see what discipline, how my discipline was instilled. I was driving very fast in Kenya. When I got there,
You
so
had
that's
to
part
stop
of that
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
Then I moved to Cyprus, and I moved to Cyprus because we went through a sort of internal merger. And Cyprus is when I really experienced challenges. And they were not bad challenges. They were actually, in fact, when I look back at them, so I go to Cyprus. The first problem in Cyprus is that you have to look around for somebody who talks English. Even there, like we had a distributor system because we didn't have a factory. It's only the CEO who talked English and maybe one or two other people. So you have to find a way of relating with them because you still need to talk about the brands. You still need to talk about advertising. And advertising is in Greek. I didn't know anything in Greek other than good morning, which is kalimera. Other than kalimera, I did not know anything else. So you go to work with the agencies in London and then get somebody who helps to interpret what you're doing, and then still end up doing the advertising. But the best one was when I went to Lebanon. When I went to Lebanon, I meet the country manager for Lebanon. He has to introduce me to the team, and he introduces me to the team, and two things happened. I said, after that, in the introduction, I said I wanted to see a few doctors, dentists, and just understand where we are. I go and see the first dentist, who is a Lebanese gentleman, and then he welcomes me with open, he obviously sees I'm black, so he welcomes me with open hands and said, he goes on, he's, pretty talkative, he said, the US is a really good place. That is when I did my first degree. I went to X school, and this is where I used to live. Then he asked me, so which part of the States, which part of America are you from? He had long decided that I'm a black American. So I told him, I am not from America. Because he had, and this expatriate can only have come from those places. I said, Mimi, natoka Nairobi.
I'm from Kenya.
In fact, I don't think I have gone to America. I'm from Nairobi. Then the conversation suddenly changed. How did you find yourself here? How did you move from Nairobi to... So we started talking. But I could see now the conversation was changing because it was now veering towards whether we have cars in Nairobi or, those kind of things. So you can imagine how it moved from...
Whether we live on trees.
a black America to this kind of thing. But it was interesting. But when we were sitting there, when I was being introduced, I remember a young man who was sitting next to me, and nimeweka mikono namna hii. And you guys may think it's a joke, but it's not. And I could see from the corner of my eye, even him, his hands were close to mine. We were sitting there on the table. And I could see the guy moving his fingers slowly, slowly, ebu pitu, slowly, and he was just trying to touch, to touch.
To see whether it's real.
To feel that black skin. Then me, since I'm seeing it with the corner of my eye, I move the word closer. It's like, touch as much as you want. We're looking at the PowerPoint.
It doesn't hurt.
We are looking at the PowerPoint.
What?
Touch as much as you want. And when you think about it, when you are deep in Lebanon or Syria, when did they ever relate with blacks? You see them on TV, they are not there.
But not
and
real
if
life.
Not traveled, so you had the opportunity of touching this guy. And you just afford them the opportunity to touch. But other than that, they're very respectful. And I realize whether you're black, brown, red or yellow, at the end of the day, it is the content you have, and also the confidence you have.
And the delivery, yeah.
If you are confident, like if they don't get the number, I think they knew that something was going to happen. And then you also support them. And I really enjoyed. In fact, this person who was trying to touch me, I followed up, just relating with them. And eventually he told me, he was a young man, he told me he was planning to get married. I asked them where they were going for honeymoon. I said, have you considered Kenya? Then he said, Kenya, how do you go to Kenya? I said, yeah, it's a good place. If you want to go, I'll help organize for a honeymoon.
Wow.
Want to talk to the girlfriend? And actually they came here.
They came for honeymoon.
And then I was saying, now those are two that have influenced. When they go back, the next black guy
changes
to
their
go
perspective.
there will find a few more people who appreciate that we don't live on trees, like you said, that we are a good society like them. In fact, we are ahead in many respects. So yeah, so we had lots of those challenges, but me, I think I enjoyed them. They were pleasant.
But I have a question.
Yes.
Do you feel like you had to work extra hard in those environments, you know, like to prove that you are as good as everybody else? You know, like this guy is touching your skin to see it's real, you know?
Actually,
how did you...
Actually, because I was conscious that I'm in the minority, I actually don't think I worked extra hard. I think it's the other way around. I think I made them work extra hard.
Wow.
Because I go there as a manager. I have a target. And one of the things that can happen there is to say the reason we are not achieving in this country is because of this guy who came from Africa. So for me, it's not working hard. It is making demands and working and ensuring that people
are delivering. Again,
discipline. So if there is one thing that they would say is they were meeting at 8 o'clock. I say, whenever I come, my meeting's at 7 o'clock. And I want all of you, if you came at 7:15, you went back for that day. So it is creating the discipline so that, again, if the next person who comes is not told these guys are like this, and two, I had to deliver superior results. So I wouldn't say I worked extra. I mean, I had to prove anything. I flipped the thing. They had to prove. And to be fair, I think we fired a few. They had to prove to me that they are worth working for me, rather than the other way around.
And not the other way around.
Not the other way
so
around.
You asserted your leadership.
Yes, I went there as a manager. I remember another story. When I went there in Syria, the distributor, because there we use GSK uses a distributor system. The distributor had an office which opened into a boardroom. So I go into the boardroom, and the guy that sees me, he had just heard the name, he didn't know who it was. So the guy calls the vice president in London, and almost he could use some words that almost says, what kind of person have you brought us? We have very ambitious targets. Is he going to be able to do it? My boss called me on another line and told me, this is what he's saying. Linus, prove to them. Show them what you can do. So I knew what he's saying. I knew I had the back of my boss, so we worked and we delivered big time. That guy as well, because I could see how he was. We ended up becoming friends. When I finished and I came back to Nairobi, I kept in touch. He said he wants to climb Mount Kenya. I come, you stay in my house. Then you organize for him to climb Mount Kenya. He climbed Mount Kenya with his wife. So again, you make the small dent in those people. And I was so keen, not that I have a good house, I have an ordinary house, but I was so keen for them to stay in the house and just realize we don't stay in those places you're talking about.
We are normal people.
Since I had also been to his place,
I
was looking forward to showing off my place.
Yeah, I know. So what you're saying is that your competence, your knowledge, and your intelligence is what really earns you the respect of your colleagues.
It's what gives you the license.
And gives you the license to lead them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should get lost in these things. Yeah, you get even today you say ratio thing, discrimination here. But I think our mind should be
mindset.
I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So says the Bible. And if I have that content, if I'm able to do that, it is about me to them, not the other way around. They're not going to happen to me. I'm not going to happen to them. Especially when you have that content that is superior, or that you're working hard, you are getting it, and you have some value to add. You add that value with confidence. Add that value with confidence and deliver. So that example of Near East, by the way, it's not easy. It's not easy for you to go to Syria and there's a country manager there, and everybody, 80 salespeople and others, are all Syrians, and you're the only black guy in the room. You can decide to melt, or you can decide to say, there's a reason God brought me here, is to show them how to do biashara. because I've been vetted all the way from London, and they know I'm capable. So you deliver. And by the time you're leaving there, you know you have cleared the way for other black fellows too, because the only black fellows you saw there are maids. And I can't remember seeing a colleague that I would relate with in those countries. But I'm sure now there are many.
So you just say, I'm a person on a mission here, and I know what I want to achieve. And
then there's a purpose why you are sent there. It wasn't accidental.
Yeah, exactly. Now, tell us about Lagos. You were there for how long?
I was there for 3 years to the day. 3 years. Once you get to understand Nigerians, I think they are the best people on earth by a far. As you know nothing about media, you've been a drug dealer for nearly 20 years. So we run something called Nation Herald. And I know the banks were a bit nervous at that time.
Yeah.
Were not amused. But we launched Nation Herald. What was Nation Herald?
Welcome back. The conversation continues, and it is so exciting. This is a conversation between two village mates, the village girl and the village boy. I hope you're enjoying. If you are just joining us now, please go back to the previous episodes, and I can tell you, you are going to enjoy them. My name is Mary Wamae, and this is the Executive Table.
Different. Like I said, I worked for about 3 months in Pakistan, but that was an assignment. When I was in London. So other than that, I would say I've worked in Nairobi, in London, in Cyprus, Near East, that bit of Pakistan, and of course Lagos. Of all those places, my best posting was Lagos. Wow. By a mile, for a couple of reasons. One, I went there as a CEO, and a CEO is a big deal in Lagos, so you had all these facilities. It was considered a hardship posting, so you even have security. If you are going to the airport, you have this vehicle that does this, yes, because GSK is a significant company there. And but that is not the point why it was my best posting. Why it was my best posting is because of Nigerians. Once you get to understand Nigerians, I think they are the best people on earth by a far. And people have those different impressions about Nigeria. Just take time to understand them. First of all, I think the only place that Africa has been left, because all of us have been colonized, even mentally. The only place you find Africa is when you go to Lagos. You find Africa in the way they dress. You find Africa in the way they eat. You get Africa in the way they communicate. So I actually enjoyed interacting with them. And I made lots of good friends to this day. Plus, of course, the market is big. Nigeria is 200 plus million plus people. So within one geography, you have more people than East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. So you are able to do also a lot more. You do some initiatives, and they spread and give you very good returns. So I much enjoyed Nigeria.
Wow.
Really enjoyed. Yeah, it was a very good posting. It was very good. The only thing is, after 3 years, I was faced with the decision of, do I renew for another 3 years? And we had agreed with my wife then that we leave the kids here. So we had left the kids and they were boarding here. So we would come over for half term, for a week. They would come here on holiday and then go back. So we had said we'd do 3 years, and then we did not want to. We actually needed to come back to Kenya. But the business was good. Wow, the business was good. I really enjoyed that. I would hope that people can visit Nigeria more and really get to understand the people, because Nigeria is Africa. Kenya is not Africa. Kenya is like the Nigerian would say, Kenya is Oibo land. Oibo is a Muzungu. Yeah. Kenya is an Oibo land. Because I'll give you an example. I'll go to the local club. One of them was called Metropolitan, the other is called Ikoyi. And the Nigerian would tell me, Linus, come and let's eat. Let me show you our Nigerian food. And they would bring something they call a bar. egusi vegetables, this, and you know, wash your hands and eat. Then when they visit here, I will take them to Muthaiga Country Club.
Yes.
because I also want to show off that we have very good clubs.
We have good.
I was a member of Muthaiga Country Club then.
Yeah.
So I bring them. Then the Nigerian, and that is why we don't like those guys, he calls the waiter and says, me, I want Kenya food.
Where is Kenya food?
And then the guy in Muthaiga Country Club is, are you out of here? We don't even serve
We
Ugari.
don't have that here.
You know, then I'm looking at it and say, who is matter here?
Wow.
You know, between me and, you know, until now you have to go and look for, what is it?
Kosewe.
Kosewe. You go to Kosewe and say, now you eat as
And
much as
Mama
you want.
Oriech.
But you see, you have to leave where you are to go and look for Kenya food.
Yeah.
You don't do that in Lagos. I don't care whether you're in Hilton or in Sheraton.
That's all this.
70% of the food in any buffet is Nigerian. Because that's what they eat and they're proud of it.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed working.
Wow, great. Now, let's shift to the media. How did that happen after the pharmaceuticals?
The media, like I said, it happened on my way back in Congo Forest, 30,000 feet. I was coming to do Tropical, which I was in the middle of acquiring. Then I got the call. The CEO then was retiring, and I was asked whether I would want to do. We negotiated, and I thought, not a bad idea. Then I was asking myself again that question. As you know nothing about media, you've been a drug dealer for nearly 20 years. And then a thought crossed me that even when I was doing drugs, I never did drugs because I was a pharmacist. I say, bring it on. So I accepted the job. And I guess the rest is history. I ended up doing 10 years. I much enjoyed the 10 years. I think we made a dent, we made some difference in Nation Media Group. I think we moved our profit that time from, I think the previous year was 900 million. By the 10th year we had 4 billion. I think that's the last profit that we made. And then I took my exit. And now went to try and see whether I can make money on my own.
Yeah, but when you are there, you're credited for also championing the strategy to move from the traditional media to digital. Can you just tell us something about that, what you did, because that's one of your achievements there?
Well, I'm not sure I would say it's one of my achievements. In fact, I think one of the things, because the digital migration happened during our time, I think we were totally misunderstood because everybody thought this analog media doesn't want to move to digital. But I think we probably did not communicate properly, because what we were fighting at that time is the fact that the digital signal was going to be given to one company called Star Times. And all the other media have invested in Yeri Hill, in Watamu, in all those places, a lot of infrastructure, which we are going to lose, or no, they were not going to take that over. So anyway, that was it. But in terms of digital, you know, one of the things that you know, when you are in an analog situation, and that's what we realize, is that you have what I call one-to-many. Yeah. One-to-many means you have Daily Nation, I decide what I'm put, and I give it to many people to read. Now that changes with digital, because it becomes many to many. Yeah. Meaning that if I jump here and die, by the time Nation comes here, Mary has already taken the video, she has uploaded it, and Nation will come here, and by the time you're uploading it, it's a bit of stale news. So we raised two things. One, that Nation was no longer, or rather the analog media was no longer about breaking news. Yeah. They were about what we call day two journalism. Day two journalism is the one that asked, why did Linus jump? Because people want to know that. So we needed to figure out how to shift from Linus has jumped, because that's
already broken by somebody else.
Yes, to why did he jump? That is when you require the brain to analyze, to investigate. That is one. But the biggest challenge was about making money. Because when you are many to many, and when you have all these citizen journalists, then how do I make a compelling story or case that I can charge for? And that is why we did something that I think was way ahead of its time, because we decided, for instance, that time, the biggest consumers of the digital space were actually abroad. We had, for instance, 1 million leaders in the US for Daily Nation online. And those guys were not benefiting us. We were working hard at ensuring that the content comes on time, but we are not getting anything. So what did we do? We said, let's try an experiment. What are the biggest needs? Because again, business starts with a need. What is the need? The biggest need for these guys, they live in the US or Europe. They figure out that they go to read the paper very regularly every morning or whenever. And then they quickly realize, oh, shucks, I was supposed to send money home. And then you go to check the paper, go to Western Union, go to whoever, and then you make a queue somewhere those days and send the money. We decided we want to trade with those guys. So we run something called Nation Hera. And I know the banks were a bit nervous at that time.
Yeah.
Were not amused. But we launched Nation Hera. What was Nation Hera? It was actually saying, if you have a card, if we give a card here, you can click a button in Nation as you read the Kenyan news. And it opens a window where you can put in your own card details and send to this other card that you have given to your mother or your brother. So the money comes directly there, and it's a form of debit card. So you can go and withdraw money in almost any ATM. Yeah. And actually it picked quite well, but we ended up with a problem with, because we were partnering with DTB, and DTB that time had Habib Bank had an issue with the US authorities. I think they ended up shutting down. Anyway, through that whole thing, and that is also when we had Maneno sensitivities about 9/11, and now that bank was having a bit of a problem, so we ended up not doing as well as we could. But yes, digital was something else.
It was a good business idea, but fell into
and
regulation
probably
issues,
a bit ahead of its time. I hope we can still do that, because the biggest challenge of news today is not news, because news is how to make money within that environment. And I hope the media and people are still looking for newer and newer ways, non-traditional ways of making money, because that's the biggest challenge for media companies today. But that's what we did as an attempt to answer that question.
I want to ask you,
me.
How as a leader of media group, how did you navigate the conflict between independence of the media and, of course, the making of revenues, and, of course, the authorities and all that? And because I think that is always, sometimes I see from my own observation as a challenge that probably as a leader you have to day-to-day face.
Integrity comes at a price, but integrity is very rewarding in the long run.
At the end of the day.
I enjoyed working in Nation. I think probably is the best 10 years that I ever had, because...
Yeah, we are now at Nation Media. I hope you're picking the lessons. I'm learning too. Have you learned any lessons yourself? Please let me know. The conversation continues. My name is Mary Wamae, executive coach and author, and this is the Executive Table.
Yeah, I think one of the things I liked about Nation, and it was done way before I joined, is that Nation has a very strong editorial policy. This editorial policy is actually a public document. It's something that was approved by the AGM of Nation. So it's a public document about our values, our do's, our don'ts, what constitutes good reporting and all that. And very early on in my stay in Nation, we had a meeting with our editors across East Africa. We said, we are independent, we serve the people, and if we do a story, and don't give a damn what story it is, if it is factually correct, if it is a story that merited being given to our viewers or our listeners or our readers, and it is correct, then I have your back. And I think for those 10 years, I must say that I'm proud of that to the extent that those stories were correct, I had a journalist back. To the extent that they were not, and I can also give examples, then I had your front. if there is any such expression. If there is any such expression.
Yeah.
So how did this manifest itself? I think during my time, I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but I think we got shut down the highest number. Actually, since I left Nation, it has never been shut down. So it was a failure, like Uganda, we got shut so many times. But to the extent that it was the right story, I would go to Uganda. Even Museveni, we had become friends. I would even get a call that he's about to share the newspaper. I would just go to the airport and go looking for him. I remember sometimes I went and reached Kampala, and then I was told he has actually just shut down, and now he's gone with his way to Ethiopia. I came to Nairobi and I asked for clothes. I proceeded to Addis to look for him.
Yeah.
So, and it's because whatever had been done was correct. And because it was correct, we had the backing, the back of the team. So those things happen. Even, I think East African got shut down in Tanzania by Kikwete. We had to do the same. We had to negotiate. But we had the backing of the team. I don't think we ever fired one journalist for doing the right thing. But we also have fired many journalists for doing the wrong thing.
Not doing the right thing.
Because it is a very sacred responsibility. If I talk about you and I'm telling lies, it's not on. You have to pay a price for that. But if it is a correct thing, then equally you have the back of those guys. So I enjoyed working in Nation. I think probably is the best 10 years that I ever had, because when you also work in Nation, you're also an important fellow. Because you get calls from
high places.
Uhuru, Kibaki, Museveni, and sometimes you can see you are a little busy. But
too busy?
But not too busy, because they can also they also have ways and means. But I'm saying you get to engage at that level.
I know.
And sometimes we also forget that it is the role, not you.
You are an opinion shaper.
So that when I left, I never attempted to call them because I suspected they would not pick my call. But so it was but I'm also glad that whatever we did, and that is why we still walk the streets of Nairobi, we did it for the good of society. We never did it to harm Mary or to harm this one. And therefore, today I still walk my Kenyatta Avenue, and I'm very proud of the work we did in Nation. Yeah, I'm very proud.
So the lesson there is that as a leader, one of your biggest responsibilities is to actually defend your team when they are doing the right thing.
They do good.
And also defend the integrity of the profession.
Yeah,
or the business that you are doing.
Absolutely.
It's very important, because we have talked about integrity.
But equally important, deal with them.
Yes.
When they do the wrong thing.
And defend against.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the citizens also have a right to be heard. So if I see that this castor you planted in the paper was because you want a certain outcome, which is not necessarily in the greater interest of society, then I'll deal with you.
You will get
I think we used to run, I don't think that thing happens anymore, but we used to run full page ads every 1 month or 2 months saying, if you have evidence that we are doing things under the table, please bring it. And this is the number you call, and this number will come to me or come to so and so. And we got a few. And somebody asked me to pay for X, said, give me evidence. Said, here is M-Pesa. So I said, come. Mary, this is your M-Pesa number, yeah. Do you know this
and
lady?
You paid so and so.
Yes. Tell me, what business were you doing? Because she says you are bribing.
Is she your relative?
You tell me, maybe no, she's your niece, or she says, you tell me, why this money is there. And if you start stammering, by the time you finish stammering, you're outside Nation.
You're out. Instant.
You are outside Nation. And we did a lot of that.
Yeah.
But, so you have to protect on both sides. And I think we had a good team. We had a good team, which I'm still proud of to this day.
Yeah, so
No wonder we have some of them here.
Yeah, they followed you.
Well, they didn't follow me, but
Yeah.
they followed their career.
Yeah. So integrity comes at a price.
It does.
Sometimes, actually,
It
many
does.
times.
Actually, that's what I would say. Integrity comes at a price, but integrity is very rewarding in the long run.
At the end of the day.
Because on your deathbed, when you look back, you'll be glad that you had integrity.
And there people will appreciate that integrity, even if the majority don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But we want to start the kiosk and you want to be everything. Then it will never become anything more than a kiosk. If you really want a business to be of benefit to you when you are much older, because you will not always be a cashier. A time will come when you are too old to be a cashier. Then you better practice now.
Welcome back. The conversation continues. We have Mr. Linus Gitahi with us, and we are having great conversations. Continue watching. Now, Linus, let's shift gears from the corporate to entrepreneurship. You are the chair and director and I guess the executive at Tropikal Brands. So tell us about how that came about. There are many people who are asking questions about acquiring a business somewhere, so it will be interesting for them to know how did you get through that process, and of course the opportunities, challenges, and all that.
Yeah, I think, like I said, when I was in Nigeria, I was very sure we had agreed that we'd do 3 years and not more, especially because we had left the kids here. So I was faced with the decision of I have to leave Nigeria after 3 years. Obviously, the company was not going to send me back to Kenya. They would have probably sent me to another, maybe Dubai, South Africa, or some other place. And to be honest, I was open to that if the opportunity arose. But as we got closer to the 3 years, I started thinking about Kenya. Do I want to come and look for a job or start some journey? Then, and I think sometimes I say life is just a series of accidents. The Tropikal, which was then called Oasis, is an organization I had engaged in when I was general manager here for GSK. How did I engage them? They were the makers, what they used to call manufactured a license for Sensodyne toothpaste. So GSK buys Sensodyne globally. And of course here we were making Aquafresh, so we had all the equipment and everything to make Sensodyne. So we just got a letter from London saying, you go to the MUL, manufacturing license, and just tell them to stop making because we don't need them, we can continue making at our factory. So I went there with my letter, and then the then owner took me around the factory and said, this is inhuman because I have got all these packaging materials, I've got all this, you can't just tell me to stop. I said, no, this is a letter I got from London. It would be, but are you yourself convinced that is the right thing to do now that I've taken you out? I said, yeah, I think you have a point. I don't think we should do that. So I called my boss then in London and I said, I think what we are doing is it's actually not in line with our values, that things we talk about every day. The guy told me, you manage it the way you want, you are the general manager, but me, I just need my number. I remember it was like 1st of October. I said, for the balance of the year, I need my number, the one we've agreed, the one we put in our forecast. I said, right, yeah, deal. So I went back to him and said, okay, I've given you 3 months. I decided I was going to get my number through Aquafresh, another oral care because all he wanted is the total oral care number. So I said, I've given you 3 months. When we did that, he said, oh, that's nice. And we became friends. And we continued our relationship. Then at some point, I moved. After 3 months, then we, of course, took over and started now dealing, but he was happy. When I went to Lagos, he told me, if I ever want to sell this business, I'll give you the first priority because you've treated me well.
Very well.
So life is a series of accidents. Towards my third year in Nigeria, when I'm figuring out what do I really want to do, I want the company to send me further afield. I want to go back to Kenya. The guy calls and says, now I would want to sell the business. Obviously, I knew I couldn't afford the business, but I said, let me fly over, you see. I was thinking that we would agree a plan where maybe I could get involved and da-da-da-da. I wasn't sure. But when we analyzed the business, it was very highly geared. It had a lot of debt. I said, so because it has a lot of debt, what I require in terms of cash is not a lot. So we did some valuation and found that really what it required was not a lot, but was good. But I was going to inherit debt, and we are talking well over 100 and something million shillings. So he said, as long as I get the business, I'll figure out how to deal with this debt. And the rest is history. I got it, and then we worked with him together because he wanted to sell to me. So there wasn't a lot of due diligence and all that because he wanted to sell to me. He was not hiding anything. And God bless him. And may he rest in eternal peace because he passed on and he was a good man. Yeah, so then when I'm figuring out how to do it, nation comes calling. I decided I want to give it 2 or 3 years. Like I said, I ended up in 10 years, but I get a team to manage it. And I found that method is actually a good method of having a team to manage. So to this day, it's managed by teams. And I'm just a muzee wa kazi. I'm just an elder there.
That's amazing. So there's a syndrome that we watch in some of our entrepreneurs of someone wanting to hold everything to themselves. You know, you are the director, you are the founder, you are the finance person, you are the marketing person. Maybe that's a good lesson for them, and you can talk about building, you know, a professional team, you know, to help you manage a business like that one, whatever the size.
Oh yeah, I think I totally agree with that observation, and I think it depends on your vision and your scope of what. Because if you really want to have a business that grows and outgrows you, then you need to start correctly. I've actually never managed that business. I've always had professional managers. They've always delivered, and where there are issues, of course, we deal with them. And I realized that it's actually a good model, so that even when I thought, if you digress a little, even when I thought about communications, I actually looked for partners. You know, this is a partnership where Nick is probably the biggest shareholder. He runs it. Do I have a role here? No, I don't. I'm just the chairman of the board, but it's run by a bunch of professionals, and therefore this business can outgrow us and go to, you know, to many places. So I think that I learned obviously from GSK, and I also learned from His Highness the Aga Khan when I joined Nation and realized that though he was the owner of the business, he was sitting in France and entrusting me to run that business and run it properly. I used to meet him once a year, present budgets and all that thing, and he would guide me in terms of what he thought the priorities were, and left me to run it, to run the checks, to do the payments, to run the business. But we want to start the kiosk, and you want to be everything. Then it will never become anything more than a kiosk. I also learned it from another gentleman called Bharat Thakra. Bharat Thakra started an organization called Scanad, and he was very keen for it to outgrow him, and he even moved it, one of the first Asians in this country to move a business from being like family owned to making it a public company. Scanad is quoted in the stock exchange. I watched Scanad grow from day one. I can tell you, they were my neighbors when I was in Ogilvy and Mather. They were a small agency. I watched it grow, and I watched Bharat releasing responsibility and empowering people until he put it in the stock exchange and being the first agency to be put in the stock exchange. That is how it had to grow him and went even to West Africa, etc. So if you really want the business to grow you, if you really want a business to be of benefit to you when you are much older, because you will not always be a cashier. A time will come when you are too old to be a cashier. Then you better practice now. You don't practice when the business is, you practice now by starting it correctly. Remember interdependence that we talked about? Yeah. Interdependence means that there is a role for a cashier who is better than you. There is a role for an accountant because an accountant is better than you if you are not an accountant. There is a production manager who makes those ingredients and produce something which you cannot produce even if you have whatever amount of money. So to practice interdependence necessarily means creating responsibilities with the experts who are the best at managing those responsibilities. Yeah.
So your role then as the founder or the leader is to actually propagate your purpose.
Yes.
And get the team to be able to know how to execute that purpose. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's amazing. Now, we've had a situation where we have so many people, especially the young people looking for jobs. And we also know that that has been a challenge because of the prevailing environment around us. I know you have also started a business from scratch. Would you like to give us some advice on that? Talk about it.
Which one?
Sangale. From scratch. The one you acquired from somebody.
Yes, yes.
I know about it.
And it is.
Tell us a bit about it.
It is.
And what it takes to start a business.
It takes a lot of courage, but it also requires a lot of determination and again having a sense of purpose. Somebody who is willing to give away to create an ocean and I become a player in that ocean. A small part of 180 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's also about your heart saying, I am actually happy to share. That just getting rich alone doesn't make me any happier.
Now, we've had a situation where we have so many people, especially the young people looking for jobs. And we also know that that has been a challenge because of the prevailing environment around us. I know you have also started a business from scratch. Would you like to give us some advice on that? Talk about it.
Which one?
Sangale. From scratch. The one you acquired from somebody else.
Yes.
I know about it.
And it is.
Tell us a bit about it. And what it takes to start a business like that.
It takes a lot of courage, but what have I learned from it? By the way, I really wanted to do that. I wanted to start Sangale for two reasons. One, I think it's a business that it's in the rural areas for those who don't know. It is out there in Kieni. And Kieni is one of the few places, probably the only place in central Kenya, where people even get relief food during drought time. So since I come from there, I was always thinking that I can be a factor. I can be a person who helps to create some impact by basing a factory there. And I tell people, if it's only a factory I needed, Tropikal has a lot of space, acres of land that I could have put it there and do one more thing. But I wanted to put it there for that impact. But it is not easy. When you start a business there, right from connecting electricity and getting industrial power, water, pumping it from a river 4 kilometers away, it is not easy. Yeah. And we are going through those motions right now. I'm glad it is working, and I think we are stabilizing now. But it also requires a lot of determination, and again having a sense of purpose, because the purpose for Sangale, yes, in the long run, is to make money, but also to be a solution to that community. Community where you have a guy who all you have is 3 goats, and 2 of them produce 3 liters of milk. And you say, bring that milk, we'll help to process some goat cheese, or we'll produce some goat milk and sell it to people. So that is what we're trying to do. It is early days, but we are employing people. I think now the whole Sagara environment has employed over 50 people, and it will employ more as time goes on. Yes, my goal in the fullness of time before I retire, I have a very modest goal of ensuring that directly or indirectly, I employ 1,000 people.
1,000.
So
how many are you at right now?
Well, here we have 100. Like I say, this is a partnership. Even Tropikal is a partnership. Yeah. I am not the only shareholder. Tropikal, we have about 250, almost going to 300. And now we have 50, 60 there. Yeah. So we are on a journey. So we are almost 50%. And I'm still feeling a bit strong. So
that's very important. Because we also hear that, and we believe that executing your purpose is also about solving a societal problem.
Absolutely.
Or filling a gap. So in Sangale, you are creating employment directly and indirectly, but also helping the farmers, the outgrowers, to buy value addition of their product, which would probably have gone to waste if they didn't have that factory there. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's more also paying them on time. Yes. I mean, if they don't sell to me, they can sell to somebody else. Yeah. But working together and probably one day even having a cooperative that goes beyond just selling transactions to savings, to now doing other things together is what will help to solve that. But in the early days when you are pushing things from your pockets, it's sometimes easy to forget that mission. But when it is all done, we should be having a community that is not just benefiting from milk, but is maybe having a circle, a sort of cooperative, leading each other, and therefore contributing to the development, so that when there is drought, people do not necessarily have to be given food. In the fullness of time.
I've heard you in other conversations talking about not wanting to be a big fish in a pond, but becoming a smaller fish in the ocean. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah,
what it means.
That I think one of the best examples is this place, because Nick would have started something, and he would be a big fish in a small pond. I could have started something. I could be a big fish. I could say I own that thing.
Yes.
But
100%.
when people come together, and even the gentleman here is one of the shareholders, when you all come together and contribute resources, you become a smaller fish. But look at we have an ocean. The first thing you said is that this place is huge. Yes, it is. Because haba na haba imejaza kibaba kubwa. So that is the mentality. And I think this is important, especially to young people. And why I say that is because I studied, when I was in Nation, I actually started something we call the next big thing. I did that actually for young people. I did that by studying the organizations like Google, like Microsoft, like Apple, all those organizations. When you hear that Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, all these guys, is the richest person in the world, and why? Because he owns Microsoft. Go on Google now. When you say they own Microsoft, they own less than 20% in times. Why? Because right from when you start, you have this big idea, and you don't have money. And right there, you start pitching your big idea to people who see this young man is making sense. They start putting money. By putting money, they are diluting you. So by the time you start, maybe you own already 70%, because the people who gave you money are stakeholders. By the time the company is making profit, because you keep looking for money, you own 30%. But the 20% or 25% that Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or the other guy will own is so big that you as an individual become the richest person in the world. They don't become the richest, and this is important, they do not become the richest people in the world because you own the whole of Microsoft. You become the richest person in the world because you welcomed people into Microsoft and they helped you contribute the resources. In other words, you are like this. I don't know whether my friend here on my left will feel conflicted because I always like talking about equity. And I will talk about equity because I admire equity.
Go ahead.
And I was in the board of equity long before. No, I think around the same time. So I have a history with equity right from the beginning. The difference between equity and other banks is because equity approached life exactly like Google, exactly like Apple, exactly like Microsoft. They did this. They opened their hands. So much so that they invited people. Even me, I had a savings account that had 500 bob. And James said to me, convert this into a share.
Into
so
shares.
You have a share there.
Yeah.
He tells his driver the same thing. He tells the other guys the same thing. So what happened is that by the time equity is becoming big, you know, people like James and others will have less than 10% shares. Right? You're saying, I founded this thing, but I have less than 10%. People say, hey, how did you do that? What you don't realize is that 10% of equity is valued at, what, can be even 500 billion, I can't remember the latest.
It is now 1.8 trillion in
1.8 trillion.
Yes.
So if it's 1.8 trillion, what is 10% of 8.8 trillion? Is it 180 billion?
It's huge.
So 10% is, and now you are still complaining, that, you see? So those guys, those are the visionaries. Somebody who is willing to give away to create an ocean, and I become a player in that ocean.
A small part of
180 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Even if it was, forget about 1.8, even if equity was worth 100 billion, and you own 10%, that's 10 billion. 10 billion. But the way you make the 100 billion is you invited people to bring their little bit.
Pool the resources.
Yes, so that you can trade with it and create the organization you want. That is one of the biggest problems of our entrepreneurs. That's one of the biggest problems of our youth. Because unataka hiyo kakitu. There are banks here who are still not worth. You see now, if you had 10% of equity, you are saying 180 billion. For instance, there are still banks that are not worth 180 billion, that are older than equity. Why? Because mtu anataka kusema hii kitu ni yangu. And how much is it worth? 20 billion. The guy who has 5 or 10% is 180 billion, and he has impacted a whole generation, a whole nation. So it is good to study places like equity. You'll find is exactly the model that the biggest company in the world, which is Apple, used. Apple is nobody owns more than 20% of Apple. But the one who is close to 20% is one of the richest fellows in the world.
Yeah.
So what does that teach us? It's not just about you inviting capital. It's also about your heart saying, I am actually happy to share. That just getting rich alone doesn't make me any happier. Actually, what makes me happy is sharing this wealth. And that is what equity did. There are very many fellows who are not even gone to school, who are invited into equity, and now they are millionaires.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So it's a great story, which is, like I said, exactly the same story. Those founders of equity, that is a story. That story is exactly the same as Google. It's exactly the same as Apple. They learned, but still, even after that, not many youth are running that. Ati unafanya nini? Nilianza kampuni yangu. What are you suffering from? You know, bank interest rates are so high. You know, it's so hard to do business here. Why? There's capital out there. Identify people you can work with. And by the way, if you're a good entrepreneur, you will identify people, you'll be able to sell your ideas. And I've seen many who sell their ideas, but most people want to feel, I can actually become equity alone. Even equity found it difficult to become equity alone. Sasa wewe ni nani unataka kufanya hiyo kitu peke yako?
Okay, so you have talked about what we need to do to attract, you know, capital for sustainability and growth of our businesses. But could you talk about why corporate governance is important? I know you are a champion of corporate governance of businesses and corporates. Just talk about why it is very, very important as we build businesses.
Yeah, well, it is very important. One, The reason those businesses are like that, far from the owner, who is not even in the continent, is because you create the right structures. I do not discriminate against relatives, but I'll never go out to employ you because you are a relative. I've never employed even one because you are a relative. But there are many relatives I would love to see working for me.
Okay, so you have talked about what we need to do to attract, capital for sustainability and growth of our businesses. But could you talk about why corporate governance is important? I know you are a champion of corporate governance of businesses and corporates. Just talk about why it is very, very important as we build businesses.
Yeah, well, it is very important, one, because when you talk about investment, when you talk about capital, I said, His Highness the Khan doesn't run the businesses. Yeah. In fact, he doesn't run business. He puts the right people and creates the right corporate governance and the structures for people to run those businesses. So sitting wherever he is, he has some of the leading companies in this country. Selena is a leading hotel, it's probably the #1 hotel. Jubilee Insurance is probably the #1 insurance. And you can go on and on and on. The reason those businesses are like that, far from the owner, who is not even in the continent, is because you create the right structures where people are accountable to each other and ultimately they are accountable to the shareholder. Again, when you start this little thing and you are the cashier and you are the chairman and you are the warehouse manager and you are whatever, actually you are shooting yourself on the foot because then you can't grow. But when you release yourself, you actually offer yourself an opportunity to have those other different ideas. And me, I'm a beneficiary of those other solid ideas that you get and you say, that's a good idea, let's do it. That's why on day one of Oxygène, we had a proper board of professionals. And we don't, whether it's here or the other place, we don't employ relatives, unless somebody is a specialist. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a relative, but if you want to be an accountant and you want to be my chief accountant, give me your CV, even if you're my cousin. See, and show me that you've actually an accomplished person who can actually look after an accounts department. You don't bring, say, I graduated from college and say, no, I'm your daughter, son, cousin. So you put them as chief accountant. You suffer. KRA will come here, find that you are not even keeping proper books, and now they levy another 20 million. You are spent, but now you have your nephew there. So the disadvantages of doing that are so glaring, and companies suffer. But you still do not want to trust a professional because you think you know this one, and he's the one who cost you. So as a rule, actually, I don't employ, I do not discriminate against relatives, but I'll never go out to employ you because you are a relative. I've never employed even one because you are a relative. But there are many relatives I would love to see working for me because they are excelling wherever they are.
They are doing very well.
So maybe I don't mind attracting those ones. Yeah. But I never wake up in the morning to say, hey, Hapa, here is a warehouse. I require, I say here is a warehouse and maybe I'm losing. I require good expert to run it. Yeah,
it's one of the important pillars and essence of level 5 leadership, getting the right people onto the business, because then they will do the right things for you. You don't need to be there on a day-to-day basis, I imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
and as you grow, then you have more time for golf. I'm trying to suggest. I'm trying to suggest this thing needs to finish because of some of those reasons.
I know.
Lakini tuendelee. Lakini tuendelee.
So let's go closer home. When you are growing up, do you want to tell us something? Or before we go there, there's something I watched and I was quite very literally amused. And it ruffled feathers somewhere. You talked about the small people syndrome. Tell us about it.
Which one?
The small people syndrome. the two short people who are fighting.
The pygmies.
The pygmies, who is arguing.
Yeah, yeah,
who is
no,
taller.
no, that one I learned from. Actually, it's good to give the, what do you call it, to acknowledge the source.
The
it is
context.
not my idea.
Yeah.
Actually, the person I learned that from, or who says it, is President Museveni. If you watch President Museveni speaking, many times he's referred to he says, guys, we cannot work together as East Africans, and yet we are very small in the scheme of things.
Yes.
We are actually behaving like pygmies who are spending time quarreling about who is taller. And not you are both very short, but you are spending a lot of time arguing about who is taller. That is how he sometimes sees the East African community. As we need to acknowledge you are short, and help each other to grow tall. Mtu anaambia ukikula omena, you can be a little, you know, taller. That is a better conversation than saying, who is taller? You both are very short.
It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, that is where that came from.
Okay, so going back to growing up, can you give us a few highlights, the context of birth? Because, you know, when some people see you here today, they think you are always like this. So would you tell them where you came from and what you had to go through when you were growing up? You are just an ordinary child like any other.
See, I came from your village.
Going through. Yeah, we are from the same village. Talk about it.
No, we came from, I came from...
And maybe you should say which village.
I came from Teto. Teto is in, Teto division, a place called Uhoine. And growing up, let me tell you some of the things, and again, I'll tell you this story, and you... one, obviously, we never wore shoes. And I want to say one of my motivations of doing very well in CPE was so that my mother would buy me shoes. So I wore that pair. I wore the first pair because I had passed CPE. To
go to secondary school.
And then I had to be taken to Nyeri town to go and fit the shoe.
The butter.
But I was so, butter. I was a prefect. But I was so excited that when I tried the first one, just in case there was no other, I told my mother, it is fitting. It's iko.
It was okay.
Although it wasn't. So I go to, by the time I'm going to high school, and then I think I was shortchanged because the shoe I was bought is a shoe that was required for school. For school.
Yeah.
Now I go and I was going to Thika High School from Nyeri. By the time I walked to the bus, the thing was so painful, you know, at the toe.
It was tight.
It was so tight that I had to remove it. And now I went to school because I'm used to walking anyway. There was nothing abnormal about walking. So I removed the shoe and the socks, and I walked to the school with shoes on my hands. And then the Form 2s were like, hii mono inatoka wapi?
Hata haijui kuvaa.
Hata haijui kuvaa viatu. So that is, and I was monorized quite a bit. That was, but I must also say, because I don't want to say we were so poor, we couldn't afford shoes. But my father, we were 8 of us, and his priority was not shoes. So no one wore shoes, but also in the village, people didn't wear shoes, but we aspired to wear shoes. And we never had any of those luxuries. So I will tell you a story that when I finished A-levels, because we used to go from 5 and 6, when you finish from 5 and 6, we had 2 years gap before you go to university. Yes. In those 2 years, I actually went to the Diocese of Nyeri, Catholic diocese, although I was not a Catholic, because I heard they could be employing. And sure enough, I was, they had a job, but the job was in Muranga, a place called Gekandu.
As an untrained teacher?
As an untrained teacher.
Yes.
So I went there and I started teaching. The salary was 826 shillings a month. So, and then you had to go to Nyeri, to the diocese, to get your salary in cash. So at the end of the month, I go back to Nyeri. I go to, I remember it was General Father Wabogo, and I get paid my 826. Let me tell you people, and you are going to probably think I'm exaggerating. My first executive act was to take 4 shillings. And with the 4 shillings, I went and sat somewhere and bought myself a Fanta and a Queen Cake. Right?
Fanta and Queen Cake.
And Fanta and a queen cake. You know why? I don't know how many Fantas I had drunk in my entire life, because those are things you used to do on ceremony.
Yes.
Maybe you have visited somewhere, or maybe, and then you are offered a Fanta. A queen cake is maybe only when, you know, maybe some visitors came and they brought some queen cakes and we were 8 of us. So I said, I had always said, when I get a job, I will make sure the first thing I do is to buy a Fanta and a queen cake. You should have seen me eating those things. Yes. And I used a total of 4 shillings. Before my father now cornered me and said there's school fees to be paid. And I had to part with 400 shillings. Now I had to deal with the 422 to sort my issues. But so that is the background.
But life in the village was very fun. Do you remember any fun moments from the village? Like swimming in the river?
Yes, holding on to some branches, and then you call yourself a swimmer. You hold on to those, you splash your legs like this, and then you say, I'm coming from swimming, because it is a stream.
Yeah.
Kwanza huko juu, because that's the source of rivers. You never had a river wider than this, because you come from near the sources.
Yeah.
So you just hold on to thing, and say, I'm coming from swimming.
And you are a swimmer. Okay, now, when we have the conversations on investment, and now we are really going into our parents, many people think you need a lot of money to start doing your investments. So I want you to tell them what our parents did, even with the limited means they had, in the village.
They used to gather together, unaleta shilingi 10, mwingine analeta hii, and they would buy plots. The biggest challenge is not lack of capital. In fact, capital is way down. The biggest challenge is having a bankable idea. Sitting back and saying it's lack of capital is cheating yourself.
When we have the conversations on investment, and now we are really going into our parents, many people think you need a lot of money to start doing your investments. So I want you to tell them what our parents did, even with the limited means they had, in the village.
Yeah, I think the first chama ever.
It's actually in my book, The Village Girl.
Yes,
yeah, that story is there, how they came together.
Yeah, the musees, and I think they were not necessarily people with means. It's exactly the story I talked about, Gugu and others.
Interdependence.
That interdependence, the knowledge that you yourself cannot afford that plot in that shopping center. And so they used to gather together, unaleta shilingi 10, mwingine analeta hii, and they would buy plots. And I remember even when I grew up, I remember one day when I was already working, my father taking me around and telling me he brought to corner so-and-so, he brought to corner so-and-so, he brought to corner so-and-so. In fact, my biggest challenge now, I guess is the same as is to really take some of those ideas forward, because those guys were visionaries. Even though they never bought us shoes, the little they had, they invested wisely. So today I look back and say, I can actually account for my father's wealth. The way he earned, the way he toiled, I can see where it is. Almost better than I can account for mine, because me, you see, kuna makati niwenda Tamambo, kuna wakati niwenda Kanibo huko. I can't account properly. But I think for my father, I can account for almost everything. Because we see it and you say, "Aye, where did you get this?" Because you are not even buying us shoes. And even you are not buying shoes. Even him, for a long time, he used to have those, you know, those tires you cut and you create a shoe.
The sandals.
It's called, we used to call it nyamogas. So now saying this, and then one day he tells me, when you had grown old, then he told me, hey, here we are 10 of us, here we are 12. So these fellows had exactly the same idea as the Google guys and the Apple people. And in the very sense, they actually managed to achieve that. In fact, now they have long passed, and we struggle to take forward those two projects. Even us finishing one, we celebrate. But then they used to have, and that is why now they would come together, since it is in the book, I have to say this, since it is in the book, even her mother, my father, and others, they would sit together when they had now declared a dividend for those two little things. And they would say, my father would say, hey, boys who? Niko na watatu, standard 7. So please you don't take, you let me take. And now next time, where do you utachukua? Yeah. They would go like this, just checking who is more needed at this time. Wacha achukue huyu, na huyu atachukua next time. That is how they operated. And now that's how they educated the kids. Yeah. So that thing of interdependence is a value that is as necessary today as it was then.
They showed us how to think big, dream big, but start small.
Absolutely.
With the resources that you have. And I think that's what we are saying. We must all do that today. Instead of complaining we don't have. We have little means.
Actually, there is nothing like you don't have. Yeah. And I may sound a little maybe outrageous, depending on who is listening. But and maybe I'm digressing a little. But there's nothing like, particularly when you talk about entrepreneurship and thinking about business, there's nothing like, because if I have done this, I'm going to speak even in my old BCom environment to students. And one of the biggest things that they say, Linus, you're talking about this because you got a good job, lack of capital. Where do I get capital? And actually I tell them, the biggest challenge is not lack of capital. Yeah. In fact, capital is way down. The biggest challenge is having a bankable idea. 10 years ago or more, I think more because it was during Kibaki's time, that is when they started something about the youth. Okay? They said, if you have a good idea, there was a youth something ministry. And I remember going to the PS because I had been asked to go and speak in Lower Kabete BCom. And I got statistics because people are applying, even university students. And the concern for government at that time is that almost all the applications is either asking for money to buy a matatu, is asking for money to buy a portion meal. And when you think about, you've already gone to university and you want to do what your father was doing. You want to do the portion meal because that is what you saw in the neighboring village. And then you say lack of capital. So getting that competitive idea that you think, wow, is A, what can even get you angel investors, but B, let's also face it, almost every street of this country, in a town, you have 5 to 10 banks. Like now here, if you go to Rwaka, there are about 10 banks. Every branch manager, and I'm chairman of a bank, every branch manager has targets for loans, for deposit, for this. So the guy is sitting there yawning, how to talk happy? Your business in the capital. What you do not have is a great idea that can actually help to pay the loan and leave you with a profit. And the guys who manage, even in this environment, the guys who manage to do that oftentimes make it and get those loans. Yes, there are issues of security, and that is why sometimes even getting through the youth fund, getting through these different avenues, and there are many different avenues, may be the solution. But sitting back and saying it's lack of capital is cheating yourself. The first fundamental question is, do I have such a marketable idea that, guys, let's go to the boardroom, I present you this idea. The people who do that, less than 1%. The people who talk about the problem are 99. So that is my firm conviction. And I know I've worked with people, different people, who said, me, I'm in the 1%, okay, show me. And 99% of the time when they showed me, they got money. Because you're also able to, there are different, there are circles, there is this, there is this, there is this. And you work with somebody, unaona sasa, because the idea is great. That is why we had started that next big thing. Yeah. Sasa tutacheza golf leo. Nikuuliza tu, sina ubaya.
No, not before you tell us about the teacher, your headmaster, your mentor.
You've been Googling.
More than Googling. I have information. You told us to do investigation. Why Kamau jumped out?
Yes. Not the fact that he jumped out.
Not the fact that he jumped out. Tell us about
Yes.
your headmaster.
No, my
and
headmaster.
how he mentored you.
Yeah, my headmaster was called Gitogawa. He was so inspiring that I actually began to see beyond primary school, beyond high school, beyond university. I started seeing what I would become. Actually, what matters is what they'll say when you're gone, genuinely. Sasa tutacheza golf leo? Nikuuliza tu, sina ubaya.
No, not before you tell us about the teacher, your headmaster, your mentor.
You've been Googling.
More than Googling. I have information. You told us to do investigation. Why Kamau jumped out?
Yes. Not the fact that he jumped out.
Not the fact that he jumped out. Tell us about your headmaster.
No, my headmaster.
And how he mentored you.
Yeah, my headmaster was called Gitogawa, who is still a very good friend of mine. When I was in class 6, as we were going up to class 7, is when he transferred and became to our school and became a deputy headmaster. Before, I think after a few months, he became the headmaster. That man has had more impact to me than all the professors combined. The only other person who comes close is Professor Kimura. I told you what Professor Kimura did to me. But Gitogawa would come. He never beat us, but we feared him and revered him more than the teachers who were beating us. Because he would come, he would tell us we need to be in class at 6 a.m. And that is when he would come and then you ask him all the questions you want. He would teach maths and English, and so you could ask him any question on that area, and then he would sit and talk to us. He said, do you know why I came at 6? Me now, I'm a headmaster. After this, I'm going to retire. But I'm here because when I go to Nyeri, I find people who come from, that time the PC was a gentleman called Simon Nyachai, right? He says, now I see somebody like Simon Nyachai, because in this area we can't get a PC. I'm teaching you so that you become that PC. I'm teaching you so that you become that DC. I'm going to, so he was so inspiring that I actually began to see beyond primary school, beyond high school, beyond university. I started seeing what I would become, courtesy of Gitoga.
Yes.
And every time I was even changing my career, I would even inform him, because my quest was to become what Gitoga was coming at 6 a.m. to do so that we become.
Yeah.
So he's one of the greatest mentors. And actually before he came, I was a bit mischievous, and I was the sort of fellow who would be sent home to come with your mother. Not because I did anything bad, but because maybe I was playing and spitting a lot of dust and throwing dust into the classroom when other people are
doing serious work.
But when he came, I changed suddenly, because he painted a picture of what I would become. And he was saying, if you only become, now that teaching is bad, and he loved his career, but he said, if you only become what I am today. And you know, we looked up to him. He was a headmaster.
Yeah.
If you only become what I am today, then yeah, that's okay, but I feel I'll not have done my work, because I want people to move beyond where I am.
Yeah.
Me was going to move beyond Gitoga, who I revered. He turned me, he completely transformed me, and transformed me to this day. So even today, he remains a very close member of my, if you come to my office, I think you've been to my office.
Yeah, I saw the photo.
Of Gitoga
during your graduation. Yeah.
Because that's the one man I wanted to tell, thank you. I'm on my way to becoming. I credit
you for this.
I am on my way to becoming what you wanted us to become.
So success is a mindset.
It's a mindset.
What is here?
Interdependence and also purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, the Baraka Foundation.
Finally.
Tell us about the Baraka Foundation, your family.
Sasa hii go hatuchacheza.
Yeah,
Baraka Foundation is something I started just about when I was coming to Nation. And was driven by, what inspired Baraka was, Baraka is a foundation where we pay school fees as a family. So school fees to needy students who have passed well. Where in my village area, so there are 10 schools, the one we used to play football with, and now I moved to Kenyan, so there are a couple of schools we've added. And what we do is if you've passed well, but you demonstrate you come from a poor background, then we pick you and we pay for 4 years. Why 4 years? Because after that, if you've done well, until now they're changing, you would get help. And with help, you continue in university. So the area we wanted to bridge is that one. But what inspired it? What inspired it is, remember, there's a time I said I was in London.
Yes.
In London, I was head of marketing. I told you I was a marketing director for Africa. And one young lady who was a brand manager reporting to me, a young girl, she asked me, I know where you come from, Linus. There are very many poor people. And I would like to help. I would like to make my own contribution. But now I don't know how to start because I also hear there are many con men. So I just don't want to throw my money. Since I know you, can you guide me? Whom to deal with. Whom to deal with. And that girl challenged me because I said, sasa huyu, she's called Maureen. Sasa Maureen akikuja Kenya, siku moja. Yes, I showed her how to deal with her money and I did a good job there. But one day I can see her asking me, na wewe unafanya nini? You are my boss.
What have you done?
Yeah. Me now, you showed me this and I'm doing. That's when I said, if Maureen never comes to this country, I'll also be able to tell a story.
Yes.
And so I told God, when I come back to Kenya, when I was leaving Nigeria, I would want to start something like that.
I must do something.
And that is how I started. So now, we started it in 2007, is when we picked our first kids. I think now we have educated over 600 because we take 15, 20. Wow. They see them through 15, 20, we see them through. So every year we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, we would have 80, 70, 60, and we educate them. Some of them make it to campus. I think the ones who've made campus are probably 80. Others have gone to different, some are nurses. The other day we had a relative who died in Nakuru, and we were going to the mortuary, and we found that the body had been sorted and wrapped. We said, how do you do this?
Without talking to them.
Hey, then I found that the nurse was a Baraka student. You see, I know these people. Wow. So they'll find everything ready.
Wow.
So you
had no idea she was there?
No, not even idea she was there. I don't know her.
What?
Of course,
she's one among many.
As a rule, the ones I educate are the ones I don't know. Because the ones I know, we can make other arrangements.
Yes.
Familiar. So you don't know them.
Yeah.
So, so that's Baraka. That was final.
Do good and it will
follow you.
Come back to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is final.
No. What do you want to be remembered for?
Kwani naenda wapi?
Or eventually.
Sio tutakuwa tunaongea.
Your legacy.
As we move around.
Your legacy.
I don't know about legacy, but what I know with my experience now, najua sasa mimi ni pensioner. What I know is that it matters not what you are. It matters not what you have. Actually, what matters is what they'll say when you're gone, genuinely.
Yeah.
And you know why that is important? Because today now you can bullshit me. Yeah, Linus, you know,
we love you. You are the best.
But when you're not there, even now if I go out and you're having an honest conversation, you know, you'll not say, this guy we saw, he has 10 million in the bank. Yes. And even if you know I have, it doesn't matter. What you talk about is lives you have touched, is a hopeless situation where you created hope. It was pain that you made go. It was people coming to say, my situation was this one, and for whatever reason, even if it was at the roadside, you made it a little better. That ultimately is to have succeeded. That's ultimately is to have succeeded. The other things are things that God enables you. God gives you to steward. And the question is, how did you steward? When you're meeting with God in heaven, assuming you all be together, what will he say? I did with these resources. Because when you're now in front of God, you cannot say, lakini Mungu, hizi zilikuwa zangu, achana nazo. Don't ask, yote ni yake. Utasema ulifanya nini nazo? That is to have succeeded. If you can answer that question without feeling shame on me, that is to have succeeded.
Amazing.
Was that the last of the last?
Thank you for watching. This is the executive table. And we had Linus Gitahi. Thank you so much, Linus, for all the time, for all the nuggets of wisdom. You have shared the tips and sharing your journey so openly. And we have learned a lot of lessons. So we are very, very grateful on behalf of our viewers. Asante sana.